Okay. Hello. Hi. Hello. Hello. I'm waiting on Kate, and then we'll get started. Today we are going to talk to you about 3 signs your relationship with self-study is toxic. I guess there might be a way to put that in the... Which, it's kind of funny, Oh, hello, Kate. We started to make this list, and then we realized there were, 11 things. So we will talk to you about all of those. Hello.
Hey, Ruby.
Hi.
I'm taking myself on a walk today.
I love that.
Thank you. Me too.
I'm wondering if there's a way. I noticed yesterday you put the title of what we were talking about somewhere. I don't know how to do that.
I was able to do that before it started.
Okay, cool. I'll do it
Yeah.
after.
Okay. Sure. Oops.
Sweet.
Oh, have I done
Um,
something?
no, you're good. I see you. I hear you.
Okay.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Um, yeah, I was just saying that we're going to talk about 3 signs your relationship with self-study is toxic, and by 3 we mean 33,000.
God,
We started
all
talking
of
and
them.
we just could not stop. So we've got a lot of content for you. Hey, Claire.
Ah, hey. Yeah. Okay. So first one, and we didn't even put this on the list. You think that self-work and has to be not fun, and you know what? Sometimes it's not fun. I'm having a great time right now, though. I kept
Yeah,
taking
for
myself on a
sure.
walk.
Hey, Molly. Cute. Yeah, that's a great one. It's toxic if you think you can't have fun and do self-study. Like if the people are having fun, that they must not be doing it. That's toxic
Yes.
behavior. Get that out of
Yes.
here.
Yes. Fuck that. Like, even like when we think about neurologically, right? Like, neurologically, our brain is more able to take in and like digest new information if we're having fun, right? Like, think about all those classes that you took in college that were just like lecture classes where the teacher lectured and like you didn't retain any of it. But then also, like, I remember my Spanish teacher from like kindergarten singing me all these kindergarten songs in Spanish. I can still sing those. I know all the body parts because I have a song.
Yeah, exactly. I love that.
That
Wow.
wasn't one that was on our list. It just came up for
So
me
you
just
can just
now.
33,000 plus one reasons that
Yeah.
your self-study is toxic.
Yes.
No, I love that one. That's so true. And like my degree is in education, and like that's part of the psychology of education is like how we learn is by making it something that like our brains can comprehend and retain, which is through fun and activity or like movement also. Ah,
Like,
yeah.
okay, the first one on our list is about like letting the shame take over, letting the story that the shame has to tell us take over, right? So I'll like explain what I mean by that a little bit. So say you're experiencing shame due to your self-work because you've realized something about yourself, some kind of behavior or even just like a situation or something, right? And so you're like, whew, I'm experiencing shame. And then the next step might be like, okay, well, what is the shame telling you? And it's like the shame is telling me I'm ignorant. The shame is telling me, like all of these things. And then we go, that's true. And it's like, okay, well, hold on. Like, for instance, I've experienced a lot of shame around ignorance. And the shame has told me I'm experiencing ignorance. Like, this is what this is. And I'm like, okay. And then it's like, is that true? And it's like, yes, Kate, that actually is true about this situation. And then the next thing is like, okay, then what's like the kryptonite of ignorance? And then it's like education. So now it's like, okay, I can't expect myself to know everything, but I can learn about this thing, which obviously I care a lot about because I'm experiencing so much shame about this thing. So like, okay, this is now a part of something that I know that I want to learn about.
Yes, and it's like that moment where you learn something. So like for me, I think it comes from thinking that I've self-studied my way out of learning. And so then, like, when a new learning comes into my life, I have had many moments where then it feels like my whole sense of self is ruined. Who am I? What am I
Yes.
doing? I'm a terrible person. I thought I was doing this right. And then it becomes, yeah, a weapon against myself and a shame spiral that takes days to pull out of, when it's really
Days,
like,
months, years. Honestly, yes.
and it's like you said, like, instead of asking, like, okay, so if this is how I'm feeling and there's something true about this, I'm not like, the difference between shame and guilt we could get into and talk about for a long time, but it's like, yeah, a little bit of guilt about something that's important is important. And then
Yes.
taking that, and instead of letting it turn into a shame story, that now becomes something that you're like, oh, I must need so much help and buy these most popular 3 self-help books or whatever, instead just being
Yes.
like, okay, I could just learn about this thing that I feel shame about.
And also, like, I'm too ashamed about this thing to be open and honest about it, which means, and then that in itself is its own cycle of like never getting help
Yeah, because it makes
because
me
we're
think of
too
too.
ashamed to say anything.
It makes me think of how Brene Brown says, like, courage is showing up and letting yourself be seen, and how,
Yes.
like, immediately when I share something with someone I trust, the charge around it softens because I'm allowing myself to be seen as a human by another human. And that, so, like, yeah, when shame comes up, if I internalize it and keep it within myself because I'm trying to self-study my way out of it and around it and, like, whatever,
Because you're trying to do it all by yourself.
because I'm trying to prove myself
Yes.
instead of allowing myself to be in, like, a student of life,
Yes.
and in community with other people.
Yes. Yes, and I think this is a really important thing. We've been talking about shame for like a long time, and we've been doing it, in the heartfelt retreats. And okay, and this takes me back to both of us have experienced shame being used against us as a weapon. So there have been times that both of us can probably speak to where someone else is experiencing shame around something that we've said or shared. And then instead, that then gets put back onto us. And now that shame is our responsibility or someone else's responsibility, that your shame is now someone else's responsibility. And I really just think that I just am a firm believer that shame is just here to teach us something. It's just here to tell you something and to teach you something. And if we don't give it the capacity and the room for it to teach us what it's here to teach us or what it's here to show us, then that's when it manifests and turns into a barrier.
Well, because
and a story.
I think that that's when personal shame, when it doesn't get worked out and worked through community and honesty and learning, it then is so easy for it to turn into, now I'm projecting shame and, like, directing shame at other people around me because of my shame.
Yes, the cycle. When we don't take responsibility for whatever our own stuff is, then it just gets into this cycle.
Yeah. Which kind of leads to, like, the second point of, like, why your self-study is toxic, which is, like, it's not of you, right? There's, like, a performative element. It's because of something someone else told you that you should be like, and instead of it being an actual expression of you, it's like trying to fit into this, like, self-work culture, an aesthetic of wellness. Oh, hey, Emma.
Hey, Emma. Yes, the aesthetic of Madam. The aesthetic of wellness is so wild. Like, and both of us have also, like, totally fallen prey to that. Like,
for sure.
Absolutely. Like, I think that's part of that's part of it is being open and honest about like, oh my God, hold on, I think I've just gotten like sucked into this thing. And that is real. And you know, when I was first introduced to kind of like to a way of self-work, it was to make, it's almost like the goal was to make me passive and quiet and nobody.
Yeah, I think that like where mindfulness and kind of like yoga have in our culture really fucked up and fucked people up is
Taking
this
a
like
strong left
like
turn into white supremacy.
yeah, correct. Is like let it go. Like choose peace. Like be compassionate. And it's like my compassion doesn't look like being quiet and small.
No. And because that ain't it. Compassion is this like deep caring. And this deep caring cannot happen if we are quiet and small and not action oriented. Like I think for sure, like I think it's unreasonable to assume that, or to even consider that we can always be in an action state. That doesn't make sense.
Totally. But you know, like
And
anybody who we talked about this a lot yesterday, and you can go back and listen to our talk yesterday on Kate's page of like we talked a lot about confrontation. And so I feel like
conflict,
my first experience with like self work was kind of like morph yourself into something that like into someone who doesn't ever have conflict or confrontation, and that's how you will know that you have succeeded.
yes. And in fact, I think it is the opposite. I think the more and more self-work you do, the more and more conflict you seem to be in.
Because
And
you
I
see
know
the
that
bullshit around you, and then you have to do something about it.
yes, and I choose that. And it's like, and every time I have now some kind of conflict, what I notice it being is it's deeply out of care. I want to come together with this person, or I want to come back to myself with this person. And so I need to figure out a new way to be in this. And so ergo, I guess we're going to have some kind of conflict.
Yeah, and so like your self-study is toxic when it's like performing in order to fit into the box of what you think a person who does self-study looks like.
Yes.
That is like ruining your life and your relationships.
Yes. And also self-work is like another thing that like that goes along with that was that like and bless you, you've heard me talk about this one a lot as I've like discovered this for myself over the years, but like what do we do with anger? What do we do with yeah, I mean to me it's anything that goes along with anger, but it's like a story that I had for a long time was like, okay, if I'm really in my work, then I shouldn't be experiencing anger. And now I am like, sweet anger baby, what are you here to show me and what are you here to tell me? Because I love you and I am listening to you and I am with you. And anger is like, God, anger gets shit done. Anger is an action forward moving thing. And I'm not saying I'm angry all the time. I'm probably a little bit angry about something most of the time. And to me, like, if I'm not angry, then I'm numb about it. Mm-hmm. And numbness, while I do believe that sometimes we have to have a little bit of numbness, like, you know, when we all binge watch TV, I think that can be okay as long as we're not like staying there forever.
Yeah, I think
track of
it's
the
okay.
end of that sentence a little.
It's cool. You made me think about when we didn't have this on our list, but like a clear sign that you or this might be easier to notice in someone else, which might help you to notice it in yourself, is like, Emma, baby. When bypassing
yes.
anything. So like something I learned about anger was like, oh, there's always something underneath, which is like usually true. There's something for anger to show me. There's usually another layer of emotion. But then I tried to trick myself into skipping the anger and getting into it because I thought I could be like I was better than the anger.
Yes. As if my self-work was going to make it so that I no longer have challenging human emotions. Bam. Yes, Ruby.
And then
Yes.
that got connected to like the shame piece, because then I couldn't
Hmm.
skip the anger. And then I was like, I must be bad at life.
Yes, 100%. And again, another thing that we both share is literally people in our line of work have told that to us. Hey, it's okay that you're experiencing anger, but like what's underneath it? Like let's go ahead and finish this. And it's like, oh, BB, this is a long ongoing thing that is going to take a lifetime of my attention and care. And if you had the courage, you might do it too. And then that's just me shaming everyone else. I hear it.
Okay, so that leads into like another thing that we talked about when it comes to self-study being toxic, is that your self-study is fragile.
Because it makes me better than everyone else. Yes.
Yeah, and so then when I find out that, I didn't do it perfectly, then,
Yes.
like I was saying before, like my whole world falls apart.
Or someone who's not like as evolved in their self-care or their self-work or whatever telling me, well, Kate, have you thought about this? And I'm like, how dare you? You don't know anything about anything. And then I'm like, I see.
Which is all like so much hierarchy, right? So like you don't know
Yes.
anything about anything because you haven't done it this long, or like you're not my age, or like you don't have the experience, or like you don't do this kind of movement. Whatever it is, hierarchy is like creates fragility within us that makes our self-study fragile.
Yes.
Our view of ourself becomes fragile because of that.
Yes. And like the work itself. Like even I think like, and we talked about this yesterday too, is like on the internet, we see all these terms for these things. And so now we're stuck in giving everything a label. And it's like, that's what this is. That's what this is. That's what this is. And it's like, so none of that matters. What is the experience of this? What is yes, having like language as tools, I think is a great thing. And if we don't have the language as a tool, we still have all the emotions. We still have the feels. We still have ourselves, even if we don't have the language for like what that is. And that's okay. Like we should be able to talk through that, and we should be able to be saying things like, well, my experience is this. And then it's like, okay, well, my experience is this. And then it's like, okay, cool. I hear you. You hear me. What do we do now? Instead of like, well, you have this ancient attachment style that you better be working on. Otherwise, I can't even deal with you.
We're going to have to talk about attachment styles soon, because I haven't done as much research and you have just seen it everywhere. But no, it makes me think
everywhere.
About, like your self-study is toxic when it gets boiled down into these labels. But labels of identity serve a really important purpose in this world that we have created to live in because of the structures of oppression that exist. But like ultimately, self-study is intended for us to be able to define ourselves at any moment with whatever identifier or label resonates, instead of this like strict, like, these are my labels I'm sticking on me and I'm stuck with for my whole life. That is like keeping everyone in boxes.
And it's also like, I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and I hadn't really talked to them or connected with them in a couple years, and they were like, here's what I'm like now. Here's who I am now. Here's what I think now. And like, we have to have space for that. Like and so like there has to be room for reconciliation. And even I think, okay, so.
Yeah. So like, if you think, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just got really excited that that your self-study can evolve you past people. That is toxic behavior.
Yeah.
Like writing someone off forever because you've moved past that.
Yes. And like, I feel like this is like disclaimer. There are sometimes going to be people that you just got to cut out, and like I totally get it, and that's fine. And are we cutting out people left and left and left and right and left and right and left and right and left and right? Like, have you cut out everybody this year? What are we doing? And like speaking of that, like we have to do the change that we wish to see in the world, right? We have to practice in our daily lives. So something that I think is really important is our view of punishment. We punish people horribly. We horribly punish people. And then we go, we don't even want you back. We punish you, we exile you, we don't want you back into society, and yet now it's your fault for not being able to figure out how to get back into society, even though society at every turn tells you that we don't want you here. And so like when we turn that into like a micro situation, like that email I was talking about yesterday that I sent to my dad, it was harsh, it was clear, it was everything that I needed to say to dad. So that was me getting to like flip the vulnerability switch. And then also now we get to keep talking. Like I get to be angry and I get to say to somebody, you upset me really deeply about this. But why don't we then, oh, here comes somebody, I'm not alone out in the woods. Here comes somebody with the dog. Yeah, like we just like, so if I believe that that shouldn't exist as a society, then it's like also, so then how am I perpetuating what I believe shouldn't exist in society within my own personal relationships?
Yeah, and it makes me think like, okay, so there are some people, like you said, there are some situations of setting very strong lifelong boundaries because of inexplicable harm. But it's like the difference between like, is this the kind of thing that you need to like build a fence and keep them out forever? Or can you leave the light on the porch? Or maybe even the door open? Is it available? Is there room for continuation and like opening, which requires the true self-study to get so strong in your own foundation and your sense of self and the people who you can trust and be in community with, so that you have the resilience and strength and compassion in your heart to leave the light on or the door open for the people who deserve that.
Yep. Yeah, and it's like your self-work is toxic when we think that your walls are boundaries, when really they're just walls, keeping people out, keeping you in, keeping other people out.
Right, because boundaries can look so different, right? A boundary can be a fence. A boundary can be the door's open but the screen door's closed.
Totally. Hold on just a second, Ruby. Hey! Uh-huh. There you go. It's a beautiful day. No, I just live right down the road. Yep. This is Emma. Yep. Have a nice day. That's
Shelly,
okay.
I love that. I want my boundaries to be rows of tulips.
Yeah, how lovely. We can both pick from them sometimes. We can share a bouquet across the aisle. I love that. Bless, I'm finished. It's just a beautiful day out where I am.
It is such a beautiful day. Let's see. Oh, I think like part of what we wanted to speak to also is like your self-study is toxic when it gets tied to like the way that you self-study is the only way that self-study can be done. And any other kind of like difference or another way or another group of belief or like a group of self-study outside of the wellness industry, heaven forbid, that's all like doesn't count. That is really cultish behavior.
Yeah, and like the reason we know that is because we've gotten sucked into that bullshit. Like and because we've gone like, wait a minute, what the fuck?
The amount of times that I've been on the brink of being in a cult, I are more than one.
okay, and then it's like, okay, so like let's for real talk about that. Like the idea is that it gives this like culty stuff, and I think that this is really important for especially white people to think about. Like we are drawn to the idea of cult because we have such a fucking hard time finding this true sense of belonging because we think of everything in like this sense of hierarchies.
Which prevents culture, which is like the root of the word cult, but like it prevents real culture and like deep rich, I think about like rich soil, it like prevents culture from taking place because
Mm-hmm.
everything's individualism, competition, and that disconnects us from belonging.
Mm-hmm. And so what we are good at is fitting in. Like I noticed that I actually feel like that's just like a literal strength of mine to be like, what sort of environment am I walking into and how can I fit in here? But what fitting in does, and Brene Brown teaches this, fitting in isn't us having access to true expression, self-expression, but belonging is that. So fitting in is where everybody is the same. Belonging is when there can be a bunch of different things, but big time mutual respect for all of the difference.
Yeah, and
And
what
what the difference will lead to is conflict.
yeah, and so like something that goes along with this one is like binary
Mm-hmm.
thinking and structure and way of doing things is toxic, especially when it comes to self-study, because who we are as individuals, if you continue to dig deeper, what you're going, I'm sorry to tell you, what you're going to discover is that it doesn't fit into this box or this box. It is somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And you know, there's a chance that I think that Rachel Ricketts was one of the first people to be like to say really explicitly to me, like, Kate, is this supportive of you? Like, is this supportive to your energy? And me being like, wow, nobody's ever asked me that before. And then like that really like catapulted me going like, I I matter in my self-worth.
Yeah. It's not just for this like getting somewhere to
Mm-hmm.
do, which for me, that kind of like toxic mindset comes from my religious background and like how I
Mm-hmm.
was raised specifically in like a Southern Baptist community. And like for me, that became really toxic of like, I think that that really fed into alongside of my like Enneagram 3 tendencies of like, this is the thing I must do to get to the place I want to go,
Mm-hmm.
i.e., heaven, you know?
Heaven. I mean, but yeah, like wild that we do that. That we bypass our human experience in order to get to, and like LOL in the wellness world, this idea of enlightenment. I'm all for that as a concept. I'm the part that I am LOLing at is the people who do a 200-hour yoga teacher training and then all of a sudden they're on their path to enlightenment and they're going to get there by like 25 and they're going to help everybody else around them too and they're going to do it in this lifetime.
I was
And
fucking
I'm
that
just like,
person. I was that person.
girl, I feel you. I know. I mean, fucking same. I was like, I get it. I'm good. I got it. And then the world was like, you do not, you do not got it. And I was like, yeah, I see. I see that now. Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then another one that we were talking about before we got on Instagram on our phone call. Kate, you shared an experience with your family, and I shared an experience with my family, and then we realized, oh shit, self-study is toxic when like you become the family therapist or the friend group therapist.
Yeah. And you know, yeah, so like there's two parts of that, I think. I think one part is so if you're the person in who like actively is like, okay, I'm doing some self work here, like I'm doing it. What I had to learn was that I could not put it onto anyone else. And I think we get in these like toxic triangles with people when, yeah, we think I've started or I'm in my self-work. Therefore, I'm the one of us who knows about this stuff. And so then that is me taking myself out of the human experience with these other people to position myself as an expert. And that's just like feels like a little bit narcissistic behavior.
And it shuts off the opportunity for that person to have any input. So now we're not in a relationship. We're in a hierarchy of I'm better than you because I do this. So I know better for you.
Yes.
Oh, wow. The I know better for you because this is what works for me versus
Yes.
like, I believe you. And now we are sharing our experiences, believing each other versus like, well, let me give you some advice.
Yeah. And you know, okay, so and then the other part of this, so like I've definitely had a friend who I felt I put them onto a pedestal because I was like, this person is further along in their work than me, so they have every insight or whatever they have about me must be true because they're farther along on this journey than I am. And that was a relationship that I really had to do my own like 180 about and be like, so Kate, at first I wanted to blame them for it. I was like, she does this. And then I was like, okay, Kate, but like, I'm also part of this. So like, I allowed this also. And this person was doing no harm to me. This was probably a moment of conflict that I needed to have a moment of conflict, but did not know how to have with this person. So I was not being harmed. I was not being abused. And that relationship for me was toxic, but only because I didn't know how to have the conflict with her. And now we can be in a different kind of relationship. And that really has been like a game changer. Like I guess I just feel more grounded in myself.
Yeah, that you can listen to yourself and what you need instead of like, I think a lot of us fall into this. I definitely fell into this with like my first yoga teachers and that kind of thing of like, this person has all the answers. They've done this already. They will be able to tell me what to do. If they say this about me, it must be true. If they say that this reaction of mine is coming from X place, that must be true. I must be broken. They have to be able to tell me what to do now.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, like Juliana said, like people need to go through and live and feel certain things to grow and understand themselves. So like, who do we think we are to like take that from people or even to give that power away for ourselves? Who do we think we are to give that power away?
Totally. And that takes two pieces, right? Because this is relationship work. One piece is the person in that piece of power, your yoga teachers, our yoga teachers. They have to know, I do not have all the answers for this person. That is fucking key. I have no answers for this person. The only thing I might have for you is a question. And then you go from there. She keeps running up to me to lick my face and then run away. And then the second piece is having like inviting everybody to stand in their own power within relationship with someone else. And both parties being in their power takes away no power.
Yes, and giving people the space to have their own journey and like lived experience and being willing to like be there with them through it. So like for me, like something I've just really learned about myself that I think is pretty common amongst us as humans is that like I'm like 99% chance I'm not gonna do what you tell me I should do with my life. Even though maybe like 3 years from now, I end up doing that exact thing that you had already told me that I should do, I'm not going to do it when you tell me to. It's not going to happen. and like I'm gonna do it on my own time. And so how can we like show up and support and give advice to someone when they ask for it, or like just be there to hold space even when you
Hmm.
can see, even when you can feel like you can see for them beyond, can you let them get there on their own, because we're not in a hurry and this work isn't urgent.
Totally. And it's also like all of it's a process. So like then that's back to the ego, right? When your teacher or whoever it is like, oh well, you should blah blah blah, and then 5 years from now when you do that thing, they're like, see, I told you, and you're like, hey, actually, fuck you, I wasn't ready for that. And so you asking me to do a thing that I wasn't ready for, that that's your work, not mine. Like we can't, like, what are we expecting from people? We have to make space for there to A, be reconciliation with people, and then B, for people to have
Yes.
a journey, whatever you want to call it.
Right. And for it to not, like, it's just not linear.
Mm-hmm.
So the more we can just like cut that shit out of like expecting it to be linear or parallel. Like if
Oh my
we're on the
God,
same,
yes, you're so right.
if we both want, like to become the best version of ourselves, that does not mean our paths are going to be parallel.
Yes.
Although ours kind of have, but
Well, a
and
little
you.
bit, but like still even in like very different ways,
For
like,
sure.
yeah, and they've been, yeah, because we talk all the time. Like right now, I'm a little frozen, so I have to be moving. And if you were here, you'd go on a power walk with me, and that's why we're friends. And okay, that's the other thing. Hold on. That I think is another thing. Is that the friends part? We're not going to be friends with everybody. And our self-work can apply to our friendships, to our romantic relationships, to our working relationships. It's just going to be different with people. And like
What a gift that we get to practice
yes,
this
with
way
many
of
different
being
kinds.
with everyone.
Yes. Yeah. And okay, so a phrase that I learned and that now I say all the time is like, well, for me, blah, 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 blah. And what I find that has done for me is it's given me room to let the other person say, well, for me, blah, blah, blah. And then we're both just talking about exactly what we know, which is ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hmm.
I want to kind of like wrap back to the first thing you said when we first got on the call, when you were like,
Okay.
your self-study is toxic if you have no room for fun. And this just came up for me is like, your self-study is toxic if your practices, what you call your practices, are burdensome.
And yes, and if they're burdensome, then you're doing it, then it's performative, because you're not doing it on behalf of yourself. You're doing it so that other people, I don't know why you're doing it, but like
Or
I
to
can
like
think of a
get
million
somewhere,
reasons.
to push somewhere, to like prove something, versus like if they are your practices, like questions to ask are like, is this practice serving me right now? Does it bring me joy or ease or clarity? What is it bringing me? Like, is it
Mm-hmm.
helping me? And then like, can I be at play about it, right? Instead of like, this is my practice that I have to do. I have to meditate 10 minutes every day for the rest of my life, or else I'm a failure at self-study. Is like, that's
Yes.
not reality. It's not going to look like that. But
Yes.
if I can be at play and have like a sense of like fun and enjoyment with my practices in my life, then like that gets to evolve naturally.
Yes. And the nuance of that, like, couples with what we talked about, like me feeling angry. This self-work does not mean that you will feel joy and fun and, I don't know, only good things. Like, I've been in my bed depressed, like for like 8 months out of 2020. That was really hard. And my self-work is like, okay, Kate, here's where you're at. And you have tools. Use the tools. Rest.
Mm-hmm.
And it hasn't, like, it's not like it is fun.
No, I get that for sure.
Does
Yeah.
that make sense? It's not
Yeah, and it's
always
like who
fun.
Liana's asking, like, what's the difference between like forcing a practice and it becoming a burden versus like getting like through to the other side, or like
Yes.
using it as a like knowing that it's a tool. And I think like the answer to that really is like you only know what the difference is. Like you only know what that feels like. And
The answer for me with that, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and it's like having grace with yourself, like letting every like hour, every day, even every moment kind of be like a fresh moment to be like, okay, what can I do right now? Like, does this make sense? It makes me think of, did you see the tweet yesterday that went kind of viral that Nicole Cardoza posted about doing the dishes?
No.
Okay. Just quick synopsis. Basically, this person tweeted about their experience with their therapist, where they were in a really tough mental health state, and the therapist was like, okay, well, what is one thing that feels burdensome? Like when you get home, it will bother you that you haven't done. And they were like, I feel ridiculous to say this, but it's the dishes. I have to scrub them before I put them in the dishwasher because my dishwasher fucking sucks and I can't possibly do the dishes. And the therapist was like, run the dishwasher twice. And this person was like, I'm sorry, what? And the therapist was like, put the dirty dishes in straight into the dishwasher and wash them as many times as it takes for your shitty dishwasher to get them clean. And so it's like throwing the rules out the window,
Yes.
And instead getting really present with what's here and now and how you can support yourself and take care of yourself.
Yes. And so what I love about that is that I think that we often think that the answer is, or that the work is, getting to the other side of this, being done with this, instead of being present with this. So like,
yes, and even in like being taught like, oh, just sit with the emotion, there's something in my brain that's like, okay, cool, so if I literally sit, it will go away.
Right.
And like that's like the thought about it, but really it's like actually like the process is just like being in it.
Yes. Yep. I've been feeling a lot of like at first this year especially, it was like, okay, I can tell that I'm depressed. Like this is where I'm at, I know it. And then it was like, okay, quick, what you gonna do about it? And then it was like, oh, this is just here to stay for a little while, honey. And so now I'm out on a walk, and that's a tool that I have today to be present with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how many times, like I know I have so many stories to speak to this when it's like what I was going through felt like the worst possible thing I could be going through, and it hurt so much to like be in that process. And then a month later, a year later, 5 years later, I look at that moment and I'm able to be like, oh my gosh, like that really sucked and I made it and it was exactly what I needed and thank you.
Yeah, so many of those things.
It really helps me when I'm going through it to be able to pull from that memory bank of like, okay, but remember I was going through it then and I made it to here and everything's okay. So I'm gonna be okay. So like, yeah, I'm feeling really anxious or really depressed or whatever, but like I will not feel this way forever.
Yep. I can do hard things.
Which is a whole nother conversation on resilience that I would love for us to have one day soon.
Okay. Okay, so what are our 3 out of 14 rules?
Okay, the 3 takeaways.
They're not rules. Not rules.
3 indicators, signs.
Okay.
Your relationship with self-study is toxic when it's not yours.
Yep.
It came from someone else. Mm-hmm. It is all about you and you think you can do it alone and that your way is the best way and only way.
LOL.
And it's coming from I'm broken, so I have to fix this.
Wow. LOL. not broken, yet can evolve. You know, my sister has a baby, and she's, August, September, October, November, December, January, 5 months old. And, you know, every day she discovers something new, like her feet, or like, you know, her tongue or something. And it's like, there's no shame for her in discovering new things. It's exciting for me to see her learn new things. It's exciting for my sister. It's exciting for my brother-in-law. And then what happens? We like grow up, and it's all of a sudden like, where does the curiosity go? Where does like the awe go? Where does the joy in learning new things about ourselves and our bodies go? You know, like she fucking plays with her feet. And I'm like, I'm 31 years old and I don't play with my feet very much. You know?
Yeah.
That's like that idea of like, can we bring some like, not childish, whereas this country is childish as hell, but like, oh my God, can you see how much my eyes are watering? The wind. But like, where's the childlikeness? That childlike.
Yeah, and I think like when we talk about like the wind is a lot, Kate.
I'm frozen. I'm listening.
Okay. I just can't focus. Okay, when we think about childlike energy, it's really just like pure presence.
Yeah.
Pure presence, right? Like pure presence is what that is. So like we've like in losing our capacity to just be here, we lose the wonder because we're, you know, and I think like, you know, like that's like a big piece of like what we want the self-study program to offer you is access to the present moment together
and a container for it. Like I think, and we talk about this all the time, like, right? People are scrolling Instagram. They're getting all their self-work from Instagram. And then we're so exhausted by the time we close the app that we think we've done some work because we read some quotes.
Right? Yeah. We're like, oh,
and so, like, that's not it.
And Lindy, I see your comment, like it also comes with removing shame or embarrassment of not knowing something. And I will say to that, like, shame or embarrassment about not knowing something is tied to the past or the future and isn't in the present.
Totally, yeah.
Like maybe, like yes, if you have like the feeling is present, then that is present. But like that process of like it coming or like and like not being able to sit with it and kind of like getting stuck in it. The stuck in it is tied to past or future. The experience of it is here and now and can be like experienced.
Totally. And then what the container does is the container goes, okay, hey team, here's what's present for me. I'm feeling really embarrassed about this. And the container goes, I see you.
Listen,
we love you. Let's explore it.
I've just learned about embarrassment.
Oh, actually. Tell me more.
In the last few weeks, I've recognized what the feeling of embarrassment is in my body.
What?
Well, I just like I'd never connected it before, and I used to be like, I don't get embarrassed, or like I can't think of really like when I've been embarrassed or whatever. But recently, I've caught myself, and in the moment, I'll be like, I feel embarrassed. I'm embarrassed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's what that feeling is.
Cute.
And I can be embarrassed and not feel shame about that.
Totally.
It's just a feeling that comes up.
Yeah, cute.
And when I say it out loud, I'm less embarrassed. Because then someone's like,
oh, really cute. Yeah, cute. And then it's also like, what the facts are with embarrassment is like, I care what other people think. And it's like, of course you do. We're a human connected collective. Of course we care what each other thinks. Yeah. So that being said, they probably care what you think too.
Yeah.
And it would be a moment of connection to be like, I want to tell you something, but I feel a little embarrassed.
And like that's like the skill that I hope like implant, like we want the self-study program to be the container for developing that kind of skill, to be able
Yeah.
to like have community with people and be honest and candid, and then like get met with presence,
Care.
support, and care.
Gosh.
Wow.
You know, my dear friend Robin Henderson Espinoza, they say that we are in this culture, white culture, American culture, we're just bad at being in relationship with each other. We just are. And so, yeah, like, this is what we hope to create, is this container of relationship building.
With yourself and each other.
Of course. I think that you don't have one without the other. Well, I love you, Ruby.
I love you too. Everyone.
Do you feel complete?
Don't forget yeah, I feel good. Don't forget to sign up with your friend, family member, partner, roommate, neighbor,
Yeah.
barista.
Yeah, fun.
Get them on board.
Get them on board. Yeah, and so the self-study starts in March.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is we'll have, do you want to talk through that? Like, we'll have a call on Wednesday nights?
Oh yeah, like what does it look like? Every third Wednesday of the month, we have a 2-hour virtual call that you can also listen to the recording of if you can't be there in person. Being there in person, if you can, is like essential really for like getting active, present engagement with one another. But then we'll also have a Slack channel, and every month we give you a theme, and we have curated the themes to develop, like build on each other month to month over the 9 months. We will give you daily journal prompts, weekly challenges, and exercises. You'll have access to like some meditations, and then you'll have access to each other, which is the most important resource.
Yeah. I'm just so excited for it, Ruby. Like, I'm just so excited about it.
Thrilled.
I'm really, really looking forward to it.
Me too.
Yeah, I know.
Oh. Okay. Well,
Okay.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Same time, same place,
Same
except
place.
for same place except for we'll start on mine.
On yours.
Yeah.
Perfect. Mwah. Bye.
Bye.